Good morning. Thank y'all for showing up. Today we're going to be talking about tracking your health. So wearables, so iWatches, Whoop bands, Aura rings, all that kind of stuff. I'm not here to sell you on one or the other. It doesn't matter to me. I think the most important part is that you're tracking something in some kind of way. And hopefully the information today will kind of pique your interest a little bit. I'm not going to get too deep scientifically because you can get really caught up in the weeds with all of it, and there's a lot of information on it. I will tell you that most of the research these days when it comes to health and wellness is very much on sleep and recovery. We're learning that that probably has a bigger impact on your overall health than actually exercise and even sometimes diet. And so today I'm really just trying to hit the big milestones that I think you should be maybe looking at that you aren't currently looking at. And at the end, I have like a list of some of the wearables that I've either used or that I know that are out there that other people have used. And I'll give you feedback from ones that I've used, just to kind of give you an idea. There's pros and cons to all of them. But like I said, at the end of the day, it's mainly just that you are tracking these things so that you can use it to your advantage. So, first thing, what should you track? I feel like these are kind of the four big things that you want to be paying attention to. Obviously, most people, or not most, I should say, but a lot of people tend to track their workouts more than anything else, right? We wear our heart rate monitors. A lot of people used to wear the chest straps. Less people wear the chest straps these days. They're a little uncomfortable. And also, with the invention of all the watches these days, most people track it on their watch, which is great. I absolutely think that you should be tracking your workouts. There's a lot of valuable information in there. And then the next thing, I would say maybe second or third, maybe tied to sleep that you should be tracking. If you truly want to be making progress, you have to track your calories. There's just no two ways about it. You can eat all the healthiest foods in the entire world, right? And never eat a bad meal. But if you don't know how many calories you're burning, and you don't know how many calories you're taking in, you never really know if you're at the right amount, right? Everyone talks about you got to be either in a surplus to gain weight or a deficit to lose weight or be the same to maintain, right? Well, you don't know unless you track it. So for the wearables, it's not obviously going to track how much you consume. You have to do that separately. But being able to track how many calories you burn on average per day, some people are very surprised at how many calories they're actually burning. What we tend to see is people burn more, and their diet, they think they need to be at like 1,000 calories, but yet they're burning 2,500 calories a day, and they think, oh, well, I'm in a calorie deficit, so why am I not losing weight? And what they realize is that gap is way too big. There needs to be a deficit, but that deficit needs to be 200 to 500 calories per day, not 1,000 to 1,500 calories per day. So tracking calories is super important, and almost all of the wearables will do that. Sleep, this is obviously the big one, and we're going to talk about the different parts of the sleep that you want to track and the numbers and all those things. But to me, if you're not tracking sleep, you're really missing a big nugget of health and wellness, and how you can advance your recovery time and your weight gain and all those things, and how correlated they are to how much sleep you're getting, and not just sleep, but quality sleep. And we're going to talk about that. And then the last one I'll put on there is trends. I think a lot of times we get snapshots of days or workouts, right? We do a workout, we're like, great, I burned 600 calories, right? Or, oh great, I have a recovery score of 75%. Well, what you really want to look at is trends over time. How are you doing each week, each month, over the year? I started wearing a Whoop band at the beginning of last year, and one of the really cool things is it gives me a weekly report. It gives me a monthly report, and then even at the end of this year, I didn't know until they sent it to me, they give me a full year report of everything. How many days I spent in the red and the green and the yellow, and how many hours I averaged of sleep per night, and what my average heart rate or resting heart rate was, heart rate variability, all of these numbers. And when you track things over time, it allows you to adjust, and we're going to talk about that. So why should you track? It tells you how your body recovered. I think sometimes, we used to use the rate of perceived exertion for exercise when we were training people. Hey, how hard was that exercise? 0 to 10, right? And sometimes we use that same metric as a trainer to say, if you come in and we're working out today, hey, how do you feel today? 0 to 10. And you say, oh, I feel about a 7. Okay, great. Well, that's kind of, a little bit of how you feel, and that's good, but sometimes those numbers are inflated. We don't want to look bad for the trainer. Sometimes it's not low enough, all of those different things. So yes, it's a good metric just to see how you feel that day, but really when you track it, we know exactly what you're at. Like I can say, hey, pull up your app, let me see where you recovered today, and you'll know exactly what you did. It allows you to adjust your daily plans, allows you to adjust during your workout. This part, to me, is one of the most important parts that a lot of people don't do. They look at the numbers and they say, oh, I recovered 60% today. Well, I plan to go do, a 2-hour workout. I wanted to go do pain spin class and then go do body pump with Greg right after. So I have a big day plan today for my workouts. But you recovered kind of poorly. Is it smart to go and try to kill yourself for 2 hours? No, because it's going to put you in a bigger deficit the next day, and your recovery is going to go down. So adjusting what you do based on how you recover. And sometimes that doesn't mean doing a completely different workout, right? You can still go to Pam's class and do her spin class, but maybe you don't push it as hard. Maybe you don't crank up that gear as much as you normally do, but you still show up, right? You do something. So I'm not saying don't do anything, you got a poor recovery. Sometimes if your recovery's poor enough, you probably should just relax, stay in bed for another hour. But in general, you still want to go and do something. You just need to adjust your workout based on how you recover. And people don't really do that. They just say, well, I have my workout routine, I do it every week or I do it every day, and that's what I'm going to do, regardless of how I recover. And in reality, that's when you start to see you steadily decline in your recovery, and that's where you start to get sick and all of those different things.
In some ways, isn't sometimes your recovery also like a fitness test or an indication of how fit you are?
Yep, and we're gonna talk about that with some of the metrics when we get into some of the metrics for like sleep and recovery. But absolutely, that the more in shape you are and healthier you are, the quicker you'll see your recoveries bounce back. So someone who tends to not be as healthy, doesn't work out consistently, doesn't eat very healthy, right? It's going to take them, like if you had, say, a 40% recovery one day, and you do all the right things the next day, well, you're not going to see yourself jump to 90% most of the time. You'll see it kind of maybe go from 40 to 55. And the next day you do everything right again, and then you'll go from 55 to 70, right? And so it's a gradual jump. Now someone who is super healthy, they go on a late night binge, they have someone's birthday party, they go out drinking, stay up late, they wake up the next day, they have a 10% recovery. Well, it's not going to take them 4 or 5 days to recover, right? I know as we get older, we feel like our hangovers last till Wednesday after the weekend. But when you're healthier and you do all the right things, that number can get back up to a good recovery number a lot quicker. So it does matter if you are healthy or not, or how quickly you bounce back. And also like intake, like hydration and food and all those things. It's useful for caloric intake needs. Like I mentioned before, if you don't know how much you're burning each day, or an average of how much you're burning each day, it's really hard to gauge nutrition to make progress, right? So we really need to know what that number is. And we're going to talk a little bit about that in a minute. It can predict sicknesses coming on. So one of the big reasons that they've been studying sleep and recovery for a while now. And a lot of people have started to use that. What really kind of springboarded it in the last few years, as most of y'all can imagine, was COVID. Okay? So I don't know if any of y'all remember how much y'all paid to like the professional sports world, but when COVID happened, the NBA, they went into their bubble. They called it the NBA bubble, right? And I think they went to Orlando or something like that. And what did they do? Every single player had to wear an Oura ring, which is a ring I used to wear one, wore for a couple years, and it literally tracks everything like your Whoop band or your iWatch does. It tracks your sleep, your recovery, your skin temperature, your heart rate variability, your blood oxygen levels. It tracks all of that. It tracks your workouts, and they wore those. The PGA, Professional Golf League, they wore Whoop bands right after COVID. Every player was issued a Whoop band, and they had to wear it. Why? Because your body, before you actually feel, okay, I'm sick, like I need to stay home from work, your body is already in a decline and probably has been in a decline for 3 to 5 days. So they actually realized that you can track COVID or kind of pre-test for COVID up to 3 days prior with people. And I saw it because I had COVID, and when I tracked my numbers and I looked back at it, literally for no reason, like it wasn't that I ate poorly or drank a lot or drank too much caffeine before I went to bed or any of those things, but I saw just like, wow, I'm a lot lower than what I feel like I should be, right? And my skin temperature was higher than my norms. And then the next day it got a little bit worse, even though I did all the right things. And I'm like, I'm not changing anything that I'm doing, but yet I'm getting worse So something's got to be happening. And then by day 3, I'm full-blown sick. And so they used them during COVID to track all the athletes to say if you were below certain amounts or your skin temperature was elevated or your resting heart rate was elevated, they immediately started testing them for COVID prior to them waiting until they showed all the symptoms of COVID or any other sicknesses to get them isolated away from everyone else. So it really springboarded during COVID where you saw a lot more athletes and general population wearing Whoop bands or rings and other tracking devices. And now they have commercials with professional athletes like Chris Paul, who used to play in New Orleans. He actually is on all the advertisements for the Oura Ring now. So he's one of their brand ambassadors. So you start to see it a lot more in the professional world. And then can detect heart issues. This is one that would show up during workouts. And it actually happened to one of my clients, and it's happened to a few clients of other trainers that I know, where we used to, at a facility I was at previous to here, all of our clients wore heart rate monitors. Mainly for 2 reasons. One, because I wanted to be able to track them as a trainer during the workout to see how much they're exerting themselves, when they needed to rest, when they needed to push. But also we train primarily people over 50, where we know the prevalence of heart rate or heart issues can be really high, right? And one of my clients, I'm watching her, heart rate on the TV screen. Every once would pop up in little cubes, and her heart rate while she was resting was like jumping around, going up really high, coming back down, and she's literally like sitting on a bench trying to catch her breath. And I told her, I think you need to go see a doctor. Your heart rate should not be doing this. She's like, well, maybe the strap is wrong, right? And of course, just to kind of settle her ease, I was like, all right, well, let's go get a new strap. We'll put it on and check. Put a new strap on, and he's doing the same thing, right? She got an appointment with a doctor, and she had a heart arrhythmia that could have ended up really bad if I thought that, she's like, oh yeah, I'm fine. Like, she felt fine. Her heart was doing all kinds of crazy things, right? So she got on medication, and we were able to stabilize it, but she would have never known that had she showed up to our gym, put a heart rate monitor on, and watched what it was doing during the workout, right? Just like if you go get a stress test, what do? They hook you up to all the wires and put you on a treadmill. It's the same thing. A workout is a stress test. So, yes, I don't expect us to be able to read all those numbers like a doctor would, right? And they're going to look at more things than just your heart rate. But if it looks abnormal, if you're sitting down for 2 minutes and it's still climbing, or if it's jumping all over the place and spiking really high, dropping really low really fast, that's a clear sign that you might want to get something checked out, right? Just to be on the safe side. Otherwise, it can end up in a bad situation, right? So sometimes it can be scary, but also at the same time, I've heard of it and I've seen it with my own eyes save someone's life, or possibly save someone's life, right? Next thing, things you should be tracking. Calories, total calories for the day, total calories for the week, and then average. Tracking your sleep, your health metrics, which kind of go into your sleep, we're going to get into that, and then overall recovery. To me, that's the most useful number when you're talking about recovery or just readiness. Some apps use readiness, recovery, those types of things. But this is the number that on a daily basis you want to know where you're at, because it allows you to plan your day ahead and the day's coming, right? So we're going to talk about each of those. Calories burned. I want to know my total calories burned each day, or some apps or wearables call it your strain, or some call it active calories. I think the Apple Watch uses active calories. But I want to know my total calorie burn for the day, okay? Because that's going to tell me how much I should be eating, right? Average calories burned per day. So a lot of the wearables, I know the Whoop does it, is it gives me my daily, but then it also gives me a 7-day average, a running 7-day total, right? So from today, the number that it's showing me is from today, 7 days prior. Tomorrow, it'll be from Tuesday, 7 days prior, right? And the reason that that's so important, I'm not going to get too much into the nutrition side of it, but we know that, one, your daily burn is like this, right? It's never exactly the same. It's going to be probably pretty close for majority of us, but for most people, it's pretty consistent, but it does this, right? Well, eating is not generally like that. People tend to eat a little bit like this, right? So if your average calorie burn per day, 7-day average is 2,500, right? And your goal is to lose weight, then you should probably be eating around 2,000, right? Well, guess what? Every day you're not going to eat exactly 2,000 calories. One Monday you might eat 2,200. The next day you might eat 2,000. The next day 1,800, and then 2,100, and then 2,000, and then 2,100, and then 1,900. Right? And if you average those days, you probably come out to around 2,000, which is at the end of the week you're going to lose about 1 to 2 pounds. You're doing great, right? But if you don't know the average, you start to think, oh, well, I burned a bunch of calories today, so I'm going to go eat a bunch. And then you eat 3,000 calories, right? And then the next day you're sedentary and you don't do anything, so then you eat 800 calories, right? And then the next day you have these bigger up and downs, which our bodies don't like. Our bodies love being in a straight line. They love what we call homeostasis, where everything is just great, it's good, we're all good. They like that. So when you have these big up and downs, whether it's your nutrition or your recovery or your calorie burn, our bodies don't like that. It's always fighting to get back to being level, right? So when you know your average burn per day, you can base your nutrition off of that and stay within a range. It's never perfect, we don't expect you to, right? But if you can find that sweet spot range that you can be in, at the end of the week, you're going to make that progress. And then workout calories burned. I like to track this just because you start to realize which types of exercise burn the most calories or burn the least, right? Because then you can start to gauge and say, oh, well, I didn't recover very well, so I need to change up my workout today. I'm going to do a workout that maybe burns less calories or is less strenuous on me, right? But being able to track that and say, the other thing that happens is when you don't recover very well, your calories that you burn are typically higher, right? So if you haven't recovered very well, and you go do the same workout that you've done the day before, and you burn 200 extra calories, you're like, why? I did the same exact thing yesterday, why would I burn 200 more? Well, it's because your body didn't recover. So it's having to work harder to do that same exercise the next day. Does that make sense?
That's interesting you say that, because when I first started teaching spin, I've never been a huge calorie burner compared to others, and I've done cardiovascular work my entire adult life. When I started teaching spin, I was burning more calories than I've ever burned, 550 calories. My heart rate, my max and average would be the same. As I progressed, I burned maybe 300 calories, but my heart rates are the same. Everything's the same, but the calorie burn. And that's because I'm recovering better.
Exactly. And your body's just getting
I love
used
knowing
to
that, because that used to always go, oh my God, why am I only burning that now?
Yep.
That was actually a
That's
good
what you
thing,
want,
that wasn't
because your body's being more efficient. A lot of people use calorie burn to counteract a diet, and that's not how we should be thinking about calorie burn. We shouldn't be thinking, oh, I ate that cake and 2 pounds of crawfish. I need to go burn 500 calories tomorrow to get it all off. And it just doesn't work that way, right? We want our calorie burn to be low, which is why I think it's so crazy to me as a fitness professional when people celebrate how many calories they burn. I'm like, man, I did an hour workout and I'm so happy that I only burned 400. Because what the flip side is you say, yeah, I'm really excited. I went and burned that 1,000 calories during a workout and I stayed extra and did more so I can hit that 1,000. Well, guess what? Now you have to eat more.
You don't know how much I love hearing you say all that.
Most people are trying to eat less and then burn more. And then you get these bigger gaps and then we wonder why we're not recovering, because we haven't fed nutrition to meet the demands of what we've done, right? But then also our surplus is too big. So now our body's storing everything we eat instead of burning it, right? So when you get into the weeds of it a little bit, you want to do a workout and have less calories burned. It doesn't mean you don't want to push yourself, but over time you want to see that the same workout you're doing is your body's way more efficient at getting that job done, right?
I love knowing that.
Yeah, no, that's a good sign.
I mean,
Zach, will you explain that word surplus just a little bit more?
Yeah, so when you burn, say your daily burn is 2,500, right? Which is, for most people, you'd be surprised, especially for men, is a pretty average number. Women is usually around 2,000 or so, right? And that's very, very general, by the way. Right? If you're at 2,500 and you eat 3,000 calories, you're in a 500 calorie surplus, which means you're going to put on 1 to 2 pounds per week. If you flip that, and you reverse it, you're in a deficit, so you eat 2,000 calories, and you burn 2,500, you're in a 500 calorie deficit, which means you'll probably lose 1 to 2 pounds per week. Of course, that means that you're getting the right amount of protein and you're getting vegetables and fibers and all of those other things, and eating balanced, right? You gotta go into a deeper layer, but in general, 500 calorie deficit per day equates to 1 to 2 pounds of weight loss at the end of each week, which is healthy.
You were connecting the point though that your body decides to make a surplus when you burn too many calories. So Why
you're
does
in
it
a
do that?
surplus of calorie burn.
Oh, gotcha. That,
Yeah,
okay.
you're in a surplus of calorie burn, meaning you're burning way more than what you're taking in. Yeah, so you can be talking about surplus and deficits on two things. You can talk about intake or expenditure.
Okay.
So you could be in a surplus of expenditure, meaning you're burning way more calories, which is when you're going to see that recovery number go down. If you're burning 3,000 or 3,500 because you're trying to kill yourself to make up for your bad diet, but yet you're eating the bad diet of 1,000 calories, that caloric burn surplus is so high that your recovery numbers are going to go down. So you're going to increase your weight gain because all your hormones, we're going to get into this, but your hormones are going to be out of whack. You're higher stressed, and you don't have enough food to meet the demands of what you're burning. Yep. So that's why it's super important to know that number of the workout calories burned. Is you want to know, because most people in general do, over the course of a week, very similar workouts, right? We mostly all agree that you pretty much do the same routine for the most part every week, right? So it's good to know those numbers. And remember, like I talked about trends, tracking the trends. Tracking on your good day. Hey, how do I feel during this workout? How many calories did I burn when I did this workout when I felt good or recovered high, or my recovery was high? Or how did I do during this workout when my recovery was crap and I didn't eat right or didn't hydrate and all of those things? How did I feel after? And how many calories did I burn? Right? So next, sleep. So this is one that I learned. So I have an 11, or she's almost 12 months now. A couple of weeks, she'll be 12 months, little girl. And this is where I learned a lot about sleep. For two reasons. One thing that was really cool and interesting is that I started tracking my sleep a year before, and now it's been a year, or actually a little bit over a year before, and then she's almost a year. So I've had almost a full year of tracking it with her, right? And what's really interesting, having her actually helped me big time, and we'll get into that. But some of the big things that you want to track is total sleep. So two parts of that is we want to make sure we're getting into deep sleep and REM sleep, right? So a lot of people say, oh yeah, I went to bed at 10 and I woke up at 6, I got 8 hours of sleep. No, you didn't. I promise you didn't. Because what happens is you toss and turn, you maybe put your head down on the pillow at 10, but your body didn't shut off till 10:30. So most of the apps will actually track light sleep, deep sleep, REM sleep, and awake time. Because what you don't realize is every time you toss and turn, you wake up, right? Even if you feel like it was, like I had last night, I did not sleep great, I was tossing and turning, I was a little warm, and every time I woke up, it's not just a blink of the eye and you roll over and go back to sleep. Your body has to shut back down again, right? So at that time, you're actually awake, even though consciously you feel like my eyes are closed and I'm out. So what you really see is, when you look at it, is you slept from 10 to 6, you thought it was 8 hours, and really it was 6 hours and 45 minutes. And that's probably more realistic, right? So tracking total sleep is super important, because you'll start to realize that you're not getting nearly what you think you are based on when you put your head down and when you pick it up. But when you're in deep sleep and REM sleep, that's when your body's recovering. That's what you need for your digestive system to be working, for your hormones to get more in balance, for you to burn calories and lose weight, right? For your nervous system to get rest. That's one of the big things that people don't realize, is your nervous system is getting taxed every day, mentally and physically, right? And so that's when it finally gets to reset, right? The old style of electronics, we just pull it out and put it in sleep mode, right? And then plug it back in. We work that way, right? We're the same thing. We need to shut down and we need to rest. One of the other big things that I learned was latency. This is a big one if you are a glass of wine drinker at night, or you feel like, oh, I'm so exhausted at the end of the day, I'm knocked out. And everyone, how many of y'all would say that's probably a good thing? I saw a hand almost go up. That's bad. You should not be to the point where you are so exhausted or so drunk that you literally just pass out. Right? That is not good. That means your body was exhausted and was like, I have to go to bed now. So if you put your head on the pillow and within 30 seconds you're out, that means you overworked yourself that day. Your body was like, nope, peace, I'm out. I need rest. Right? Latency should actually be about 15 to 20 minutes. Meaning you lay down, read a book, whatever, but 15 to 20 minutes, 15 is kind of that sweet spot, is how long you should be up before you actually fall asleep. That means you were fatigued enough to go to bed, and you could say even 10 to 20 is a good range, right? You don't want to be less than 10, but yet you're fatigued enough to go to bed, but not so tired that you just pass out. So that was one that I found very interesting when I first started to learn about sleep and the impact that it has. And many people, when you talk to them, they think, oh yeah, I'm exhausted, and I just crash it. I could sleep on concrete, I'm so tired. Right? Well, that's not good. Right? The next thing, disturbances. Like I talked about with total time, is how many times you squirm and roll around and all of those things. Because every time you do that, you're basically resetting back to awake time, light sleep, deep sleep, REM sleep. You have to get back into that cycle. Every time you kind of roll over and squirm or whatever it is, or get up to use the bathroom, whatever it is. So disturbances, you want to be as low as possible, right? You want to be like, yep, I shut my eyes and didn't wake up one time. That would be ideal. Doesn't happen for most people, but that's where you want to shoot for and aim for, right? And then this is the big one with having a child, bedtime, right? One of the first things I learned as a parent, people are like, you got to get her on a schedule. You got to get her on a schedule and it'll make your life easy. But guess what? We're just big babies. We need to be on a schedule too. And we work better when we're on a schedule, right? Because what's the 2 times that she cries? Is when she's hungry and when she's tired. What do we do as adults? We get hangry and we get ornery when we're tired, right? We just have the cognitive ability that it shows up in other ways. We don't just go cry in a corner, right? But guess what? It shows up in other ways. We get moody with our significant other, right? Or our friends. We get testy. All of those things. It shows up in different ways, but guess what? It's still there, right? The mood swings, all of those different things. The fatigue, the cognitive ability to do things, to be focused and stay focused throughout the day. When you go to bed at the same time every night, it helps get your body in that even keel that we want, right? Our body likes to do the same things over and over and over, right? So bedtime, the thing that helped me is we put her down at 8 o'clock and I go to bed at 8:30. I get in bed, and so my sleep used to be, oh, I can binge watch Netflix and stay up till 11:30, or oh, I'm so tired I'm gonna go to sleep at 8, and then next night I'll watch one show, and at 9 o'clock, or oh, it's Monday Night Football and it's on till midnight. I'm gonna stay up and watch because I like the teams. So my sleep was like this. As soon as I had a baby, my sleep has gotten so much better because I go to sleep at the same time almost every night, right? Just like her. So going to bed at the same time is a huge, huge factor in whether or not you get enough total sleep. Because for most of us, if you're not retired, you have to wake up at the same time every day, right? Most people go to work, wake up at the same time. But if you're going to sleep at different times, then you're never getting the same amount of sleep, or you're never getting regular sleep, right? So benefits of good sleep. It'll boost your immune system, help you fight off infections and diseases, regulate your metabolism and your hormones. So that's a big one. Regulate your metabolism. Meaning if you have poor sleep, it's not going to help with weight gain, right? So it decreases weight gain. And the big one is hormones, okay? When you don't sleep, cortisol levels go up. Cortisol is your stress hormone. When cortisol goes up, guess what you don't do? Typically don't eat right, you don't work out very well, you're stressed. Well, guess what happens when you eat poorly and don't work out and don't do all the good healthy habits? Well, your cortisol levels go up again. And then because your cortisol levels are high, you don't sleep very well because cortisol affects your sleep. And when you don't sleep well, it increases your cortisol levels. And then you get this vicious cycle of, all right, what the hell do I do? Right? The easiest way, we talked about it last week in our fuel seminar, was nutrition. Nutrition is the easiest way because you have control over it. You can't just say, hey, I'm going to go to sleep tonight, I'm going to sleep for 10 hours. Right? Your body just doesn't do that, right? It wakes up when it wakes up. So, but one thing you can affect is your nutrition. You can change the way you eat. You can change how much water you're drinking, right? You have that choice. And when you do that, and you can exercise regularly, all of those things, you have that choice. And when you do that, it can affect your hormones, drop those cortisol levels, right? Which will eventually start to get you to sleep better. When you start to sleep better, your cortisol levels will lower, right? And then you won't have all those cravings. You won't be so stressed and moody and all those things. And then you become in a good cycle, which is what you want. So that one, the hormones, it's a lot more than just sleep. But when we sleep, we're able to regulate those hormones back to normal levels. So decrease weight gain when you sleep, right? Because your metabolism is working, your body's recovering, right? Decrease stress and better mood. That's a big one. We know that if we don't get enough sleep, most people wake up cranky or until you have that first cup of coffee, right? And you're like, oh, I'm good, back to normal, right? We don't want that. We want to wake up in a good mood, energized, ready to go. Coffee helps give a little bit of a boost, but it shouldn't be what you're relying on. Improved heart health, right? Allows all of that to recover. Your heart's working less while you sleep. There's some people, I've looked at the numbers and I'm like, were you even asleep? Your heart rate was so high and your HRV was so low that it looked like you weren't even sleeping. Improved performance. Like Pam said, your workout gets easier. Shocker, right? Your workout gets easier when you recover better and when you sleep better. Improved memory, which is a big one, or cognitive ability, so focus at work, right? Your ability to remember things and find details. And then another big one, improved libido, right? Everybody wants that, right? We don't want that to decrease. So that is a big one. Even our sex hormones get regulated during sleep. And of course, if you're stressed and moody, you probably don't want to either. Anyway, right? And the next thing, side effects of poor sleep. The exact opposite of the last slide, which is lowers your immune system, decreases your metabolism, increases weight gain, increased stress and mood swings, decreased heart health, decreased performance, and lowers your libido, right? If you just saw this line, you're like, I don't want any of those, right? But we definitely want these. So all it is sleeping and tracking, right? So here's some of those health metrics I was referring to that I think are really important, and almost all of the wearables will give you some form of these things. Depends on what model you have. But respiratory rate, okay? Resting respiratory rate. Respiratory rate, meaning when you sleep, how are you breathing? The average is 15 to 16 per minute. Okay, so you don't want to be sleeping, right? That's not good, right? We want to have slow, deep, soft breaths, right? So 15 to 16 per minute. Tracking that, when your respiratory rate goes up, if you have the flu, sinus infections, bronchitis, any of those things, you'll see that number skyrocket pretty quickly. Resting heart rate, this is a big one, okay? Big one. 40 to 50 beats per minute is most ideal, right? Most ideal. That's not the average, right? But most ideal. For every 10 beats per minute that you go up, if you look at a graph, your life expectancy goes this way. Or down. I should go this way, facing the wall, right? So those things are inversely proportional. The higher your resting heart rate, your life expectancy starts to drop very quickly, especially when you get over like 65, 70 beats per minute.
I was wondering, wouldn't your age affect that? Like, say I'm 72, so I'm not going to have 50 beats per minute, right?
Yes and no. Yes and no. It will, your age will affect your resting heart rate, and as we get older, it tends to trend upward, right? But at the same time, I know 60-year-olds who exercise regularly, do a combination of strength and cardio and all these things, and they actually have lower resting heart rates than me. So you can absolutely, the main thing is we're always fighting age, right? We're always fighting the end. So we're never, as we get older, yes, in the early years of our life, when we're in our 20s, we can still peak, right? We get to that peak and everyone's like, oh yeah, that was my age when I felt the best, moved the best, everything was the best. And then at that point, we start to trend down, right? So it's always going in that direction. All we're trying to do is slow down Father Time. That's it. The longer we can fight against that, so for many people, it's not that we're ever trying to get better. And I think sometimes that can be discouraging for people because they're looking at, man, I'm putting all this work and effort into my fitness and into my health, and I'm not moving the needle. I would say that's a win for somebody. Depending on what age you are or what physical condition you are in currently, that could be a win, that you're not getting worse, right? If you think, hey, I can squat 50 pounds, right? If I can grab a dumbbell, squat 50 pounds, and you're 50 years old, and every single year you do a test at the end of the year, hey, can I squat this 50 pounds 10 times? And by the time you're 80, you can still squat that 50 pounds. That's amazing, right? Because you haven't lost the strength that you had when you were 50. But a lot of times, as humans, we always want to see that we're getting better, and getting better, and getting better, and that we're reaping the rewards of all the effort that we're putting in. And sometimes progress looks flat, and sometimes that is progress, right? So it just depends on where you are physically, right? What age you're at. But in general, we should always be trying to get that number as low as we can. Even if you're 60 years old now and you train and work hard for 5 years, and you get it, from a maybe 60 resting to a 59 or 58, that's a win. That's a huge win. So it's really hard to get this number to move down, by the way. So if you were to test it right now, and you went home and slept and got your resting heart rate, and it was 60 beats per minute, and you say that's going to be my goal for 2023, is I want to get my resting heart rate number down. If you got it down 2 beats per minute over a year, that's a huge win. It is really hard to get that number down. Really hard. Right? But yes, you are correct that as you get older, that number generally goes up. Right? But we always want to aim for the best, right? And aim to lower it. So if you look at like Lance Armstrong, who was a spin or bike rider, right? His was like abnormally lower. We know he was taking performance enhancing drugs as well. But at the same time, his was like a 35. Like he was in a coma when he was sleeping. But that's also what made him really good. Most of the performance enhancing drugs are geared towards recovery, not towards physical performance. They're actually geared towards being able to recover. If you watch like a documentary of him, he even talks about the drugs that he was taking were helping him recover more and quicker so that he could work out harder. Not because he wanted to work out harder, or taking the drugs to work out harder. He was taking the drugs to recover quicker so that he could work out harder. It's cause and effect thing, right? But most of us think of just the workout side, and we don't think of how the damage we're doing to our body, how long it's going to take us to recover from that. So his was like abnormally low.
Zach, that's kind of like why I've heard you say that you don't, like people that say, man, I killed my workout, I can barely make it up the stairs today, that you like, don't like that.
No,
yeah.
I'm like, great. Sounds like you killed yourself. Why would you want to do that? That sounds absolutely miserable. Like, and you know, some people, they like, oh yeah, I want to work out until I puke. It's like, who said, like Mike Boyle, who is someone, a guy I look up to, he's in his 60s, is a strength conditioning coach up in Boston, and he always uses the analogy of, you know, when people work out so hard and they feel like crap and they're super sore and all this kind of stuff, or they puke after the workout, it's like, and they're like, yeah, I can't wait to go back and do it again. And if I said, hey, Greg, or you came here and say, hey, Zach, I smashed my hand in the car door. I'm not going to be able to work out today, but as soon as it gets better, I'm going to go back and I'm going to do it again. I'm going to smash it again. It's like, would anyone say that? No, we think that way about our workouts. Oh, they killed me. I could barely walk. I got to grab the back of the toilet. Just sit down. It's like, why would you? And you're like, I can't wait to go do it again. Can't wait. I'm like, that sounds miserable. It means you did too much. You shouldn't feel that way. Our body doesn't like those big ups and downs. It doesn't like feeling like crap. It wants to feel good. So after your workout, if you don't feel energized, and I always use the saying, if you did a workout today and I asked you to do the same workout tomorrow, you should be like, okay, I can do it. You shouldn't be like, oh no, there's no way I can lift legs again. There's no way. I can't make it through it. Right? So that's how you kind of want to think about your workouts. You shouldn't feel that bad. Next number is HRV. This is it's heart rate variability. This term got really, really popular definitely in the last 5 years, but even over the last 10, because a lot of research has been coming out about this. Because resting heart rate tells us part of the story, but HRV is a shift in timing between heartbeats. So it's measuring the time between your heartbeats. Okay? So obviously this is inverse proportional to the resting heart rate, meaning the lower your resting heart rate, the higher your HRV. The higher your heart rate, the lower your HRV. Right? Higher is better. This is one that drastically goes down as we get older, but indicator for nervous system stressors, because this is checking like literally the electrical signal that's making your heart beat. Okay? So this is a very, very, very good indicator for stress, because stress is on the nervous system. Yes, it shows up in muscle fatigue and all of those things and mental clarity, but it's a nervous system tester versus how my heart is pumping oxygen. So your resting heart rate, or your heart rate, is based on your heart pumping to get oxygen to the body, right? HRV is more of an indicator that we look at for the nervous system for stress levels. But they can affect each other. So if your heart rate is going up because you're not utilizing oxygen properly, this is going to go down. If you're highly stressed, but you can use oxygen really well, and you can pump the blood through your heart, you have a really healthy heart, but you're really stressed mentally, then this can affect this, right? So they kind of work together. So it can be a little confusing sometimes, but just think, this is more for oxygen pumping through the heart, this is more for nervous system stress. And then the other one is skin temperature, which I said can indicate oncoming sickness, like I talked about earlier with COVID and flu and all of these other things. It actually checks your skin temperature and it gets your range, and then every day it tells you what you are above that range. So you can start to see if you're getting sick just by your skin temperature, right? Because the first thing we do when we get cold sweats and all of those things, right? So we expel heat from our body, or sickness, through the skin. So, overall recovery. Main thing you want to do, listen to the data like I said before. Don't just say, oh, I'm at 20%, but I gotta go work out today. I had a hard workout plan. Change it. It doesn't mean you need to change the exercises, right? It doesn't mean you need to change how long you exercise, but doing things that will help promote it and get it higher, going for a walk, foam rolling, stretching, yoga, things that are more of an active recovery like we talked about in that fuel seminar, right? But also changing how much weight you do. So if you had squats planned, great. You don't have to not do squats, do less weight. You don't have to not do the squats, do less reps, do less sets, right? There's ways that you can lower the intensity of a workout by still doing the same exercises, but not pushing yourself so hard, okay? Adjust your workout, like I mentioned. Plan your sleep, right? Don't plan to binge watch Netflix. Plan to say, hey, I'm gonna go rest, put my head down, and get in bed at 9 o'clock, right? And then find the trends based on your routines. Everybody's different, right? So find what works for you and put a pin in it. Notice that, hey, when I drank 4 bottles of water, that my recovery was better, or that my exercise and workout was easier, right? Because I was more hydrated. What did that do to my sleep? Hey, my sleep was higher. What did that do to me in the morning? How did I feel, right? And follow those trends and start to plan or make plans, whether it's your workout or your sleep or your daily activities, based on that. Hey, I was mentally fatigued later in the day, so I had, some extra caffeine, another cup of coffee. Well, guess what? They put me in the tank a little bit more because then I couldn't sleep because I had caffeine too late in the day. So finding those routines and finding what works for you is going to be the best thing you can do. And then here are some of the tracking options, like I mentioned. So this is the Whoop strap. The Aura ring is literally, it looks like a men's wedding band. And I have one at home that I was using. I even tracked it against this one. But those are really good just if you want something that's not so visible. Apple Watch, Polar Watches, Fitbit, and Garmin. Any of them, right? It doesn't matter. The biggest thing is that you're tracking all of these things. Some of them do things that others don't. I know we found out the other day, I didn't know my Apple Watch is like a Series 2. It's like really old. It doesn't do any of the cool fancy things like the new ones do. But we found out from the seminar last week that Apple Watch does not give you a readiness or recovery score, but it does track all of the other things. So just to kind of give you some pros and cons of all of the ones that I've worked with, Whoop is the one that I use. Some of the downsides is it's like a strap, like an athletic strap, and so you can get it wet, but it takes time to dry, so I don't like getting it wet. So I have to take it off to shower, or if you were to go swimming, or any of those things. And it gets kind of nasty when you're sweating a lot. So I have multiple straps that I'll use. I also don't like it on my wrist. One of the reasons I got the Aura ring first is because when I sleep like this. And this was pressing against my wrist, but they do make an arm strap. So now I literally take off a little piece, the sensor, and I put it on my bicep strap, and I wear that to sleep. The other thing is that it doesn't hold the charge, like a full charge will last you like 4 days, 3 or 4 days. That's the biggest thing, in my opinion, with some of these, is how long they stay charged. Like the Aura ring was like a 5 to 7 day charge, which is great, and it charged really quick, in less than an hour. From 0% to 100, it was like less than an hour. This one takes a little bit longer, which is a downside of the two. The Aura ring, you can get wet, and you can swim in it. It'll even track your laps in a pool. I know Randy, who's our fitness consultant here, she has one, and that's what she uses with her swimming. The Apple Watch, the battery life is a little bit lower, and I think depends on what model you have for Polar, Fitbit, and Garmin. Some of them have longer battery lives, and they do some of the recovery and sleep and all that kind of stuff. But if they had people in the seminar last week, they're like, oh yeah, I have an Apple Watch, I'll do it. And they're like, but I never wear it to sleep because I have to charge it. I'm like, well, that doesn't happen. What's on the charger at night, it's not tracking your sleep. It'll track your workout in your day, and you can use some of those numbers, absolutely. But to me, the most important number is your overall recovery. That's what you want to know, because that's what's going to tell you what you need to do that day to keep it up or to help it get better, right? Fitbit has really, they came out with all the step counters and all of those years ago, and everyone went down, and then kind of the other brands passed them up a little bit in the technology, but now they're starting to come back and catch up to everyone else. So it's just a preference thing. I know with Polar, theirs is much more like app-wise, it's much more scientific. They like to gear their stuff very heavily towards athletes. So some of their information can be Harder to find, it just depends. And it takes a little second to learn their apps and all that kind of stuff. So that's one thing I would also tell you is finding one where you feel like the app is friendly for you, where you can find the information you need, is super, super important. One of the things, and this is...
Zach, I think it's important too when you're saying the app and friendly, is that some of them don't have outputs. Like your Whoop doesn't,
Yeah.
you have to log into your phone to see it.
Yes, yep.
Yeah.
So some of them will show you on the face, like the Whoop band does not have a face. On my Apple, I can go here and look at all my numbers and stuff like that on the face. So some of them don't have that ability. So they have apps, but also obviously even the ones with the face, you can typically go into like your health app or whatever app they use to see all of the data. And so that's like one of the first things I do when I wake up. Is I go check my recovery and see where I'm at. One of the things that I kind of had a bone to pick with all of them that's kind of difficult for them is that there's so much information, as you can see today. Like I barely dipped our toe in the water of all of these things and learning what they are and how to use them. It's really hard for these companies to sell you on that in a 30-second commercial, to get you bought in, to understanding why it's so important and how to use it and why to use it. There's a lot of questions, right? But the good thing is once you're into the ecosystem and you buy the product and you get into the app, they do an amazing job of educating you. So you're like, you get the strap and you're like, I don't know what any of this is or how I'm going to use it or any of that. The great thing that almost all of them do is they are very, very good at teaching you once you're in there, right? And you can click on all the different things. You can click on latency. You can click on disturbances, and it'll tell you what the averages should be and what latency is and how it affects your sleep or how it affects your recovery. So they do a very, very good job of educating you once you're in, but I think the hard part of getting all of our general population to start wearing these things, it's really hard to do all of that and explain all of this in a 30-second commercial, right? So they try to make it look all fancy and cool to wear one, but they don't really tell you how you're supposed to use it or why you're supposed to use it, right? So I will tell you, if you're just like, man, this seems like a lot, it's overwhelming, I would very much encourage you to just get one, put it on. They all take, but depending on which one, 4 to 7 days to calibrate, where it starts to get your norms, and then it starts basing your numbers based off of your norms. And so I would say just get into it, and I promise you you're going to learn along the way, and then you can start to track it. But it is one of those things that it looks like it's, you know, very complicated from the outside looking in. I promise you once you're in, it's really, really easy. Really easy. So, any questions? I know we kind of answered some along the way, which are great. But any other questions that y'all have about it? Or just about sleep or recovery in general, maybe not necessarily about the products?
I have to say, I don't have a question, but I have to tell you, this has been an amazing lecture. I've thoroughly enjoyed it. As someone who's been in fitness my entire life, I've done everything from the chest straps to the Garmin's to the Polars. I had an Apple Watch, and I was telling my class, and I'm always into the numbers, but in the ways that really weren't important now. But one day I couldn't get my band changed, and so I came without it, and then I said I broke up with my watch because all it did was frustrate me. But see, this enlightens me to a lot of things. That recovery, that makes so much sense to me, because for as much as I know about some aspects of exercise, this I didn't know enough about to give my classes good information. It was, and I didn't want to just give opinion, because that's all that is my opinion. So now it makes me want to go get another watch, because I actually haven't been wearing my watch in probably a year, just because of that reason. It was frustrating to me.
I bought my first sleep tracking device right before COVID. I bought it, I think it was February when I first started here. Because before that, fitness was very much more of just tracking your workout.
Right.
And wearing your chest strap and looking at your workout. And as a trainer, that was great information for me, because I could tend to see over the course of time with each of my clients, I could see about how they should be performing or where their heart rate should be. And so I could say, you know, hey, Ms. Jones, you look your heart rates are a little higher than normal. You know, how did you sleep last night? Are you recovered? Did you get enough food today? You know, are you feeling okay? Like those things. But that takes time, and it takes working with the same person consistently and all those things. And it's great, but it doesn't tell her what she should be doing when she's not with me. Right? She's with me 2 or 3 times a week, and that's not enough to have a drastic impact on her health long term. Exactly. So it's just another level to just tracking the workouts, because all of them track your workouts. So really, it's more so tracking the recovery and seeing how that affects your workouts. And to me, that's the most important part.
It really is.
Yeah.
Okay. So, agree or disagree? I hear a lot from various trainers. I mostly do group exercise.
Okay.
We hear a lot of, you know, you're not dripping sweat off of your elbows, you need to up your weight. And if you're not doing this and that and whatever, you need to do more, push harder, da-da-da-da-da. So, in essence, you're saying, that's not necessarily true.
Partially. I would, and like I said, everybody is so different. Everybody has different goals. I think the one thing as trainers that we always try to do is push you mentally to realize. I would say that at the same time, if I were to go on the fitness floor and just sat there for 8 hours a day, I would say 80 to 90% of the people are not pushing as hard as they should to reach their goals. Like I watch a lot of people, and group X is different because they keep y'all going, right? Almost the entire time. There's very little rest in those workouts. But if I'm looking at the fitness floor, I see a lot of people do a set, sit on their phone, talk to their buddy. 3 minutes later, they go do another set. And so I would say in general, most of the population is not working out hard enough to make physical progress, meaning stress your muscles enough, stress your cardiovascular system enough to make progress over time. But also, that's okay. Like if you're pushing that hard, that is okay, as long as your recoveries are still good, right? Meaning that you're getting the amount of hydration, which I see you with your water bottle, right? That you're getting the hydration that you need, that you're getting the nutrients you need from a good, well-balanced diet. So you can work it out as hard as you want, as long as you're doing and checking all of the other boxes that you need to make sure that that hard workout doesn't put you, in the grave the next day, right? That you're not having a recovery of the 10%. Now, if you go do that, you're dripping sweat from the elbows and all that, and then you wake up the next day and you can't move and can't go back and do that workout again, or your recovery is, in the tank, then yeah, I would say that was probably a little too much. But if your recovery is great, then yeah, that was awesome. You did all of the things that you were supposed to do. So it's not just a workout is one part, right, of the equation, but there's so many other little parts that go into it. And one of the big parts is you as an individual and what your goals are.
So in essence, if you're not recovering well, you're basically just sabotaging your workouts.
Absolutely. You're walking uphill every single day and trying to fight it, right? Like the escalator, like you're literally trying to walk backwards up the escalator every single day, right? And then you get tired at some point, so you kind of just let it take you for a minute, and then you try to push back again. You get up, and you're like, I'm tired. And you let it pull you back down, and you never reach the top, right? Because you're in the cyclical motion of trying to fight uphill. But if you're tracking your recovery and adjusting your workout based on it, then you should be winning, right? Because your recovery is going to tell you if you're making progress. I can promise you that.
Hey, I don't know if you were in here when I was asking him, when I started were you here when I said that when I first started teaching spin? I was burning more calories than ever.
Right.
Everything was exactly the same. My heart rate, no. So that meant I'm recovering great.
Right.
So if you're getting the results you want.
Well, you had told me years ago 2 things that impacted my workouts and my exercise life. And one of them was you may not be burning as many calories as you used to as you progressively get in better and better shape. And the other thing was you can't work out a bad diet. It ain't gonna happen.
We try it sometimes though.
No.
I have lived by
Put a
that.
valiant effort in this weekend.
I've lived by that for so long now.
Yeah, and that is so true. And that's the hard part is we generally get focused on, working out really hard, or just nutrition, or just sleep, and all these things. In reality, all of them are connected, and all of them affect each other. And so the easiest one that we have the choice to make that I think is going to have the biggest impact is absolutely nutrition. Without a doubt, there's nothing that's going to affect your progress and your health more than anything than nutrition. But when you compound the nutrition with a great exercise routine and staying physically fit and mobile, and then also that's going to impact your sleep. And man, when you get better sleep, I'm telling you, I track mine every single day, and I can absolutely tell you that my days when I recover better are just better. And the other cool thing is that when I see a good recovery number, I just know that, man, I'm gonna have a great day. I just feel like it's just validation to me that, hey, today's gonna be a good day. I can work out as hard as I want and be okay. If maybe I happened to not get my workout in because the day got away from me and I didn't have time. So what? It's okay, right? But I know the next day is going to be better, right? So a lot of times it's validation. Or you wake up and it's bad and you think, man, that's negative. Can't go work out as hard as I wanted, or I'm not going to be mentally focused. And in reality, it's using it as a tool to improve those things throughout the day. Hey, my recovery was crap. Let me drink a bottle of water before I leave the house today to go to work, right? Something as simple as that. Hey, let me make sure that I don't go grab breakfast through a drive-through window. Let me actually cook a couple scrambled eggs and have a piece of toast before I leave. And I guarantee you those little things along the day, you're going to feel better, right? So it's not getting down on yourself when you have a bad recovery. It's, hey, that's a trigger. Okay, I need to make an adjustment, right? And when you do that, the next day your recovery is going to go back up, right? So it's just a big, big tool. That's all it is. It's a tool to say what you should and shouldn't be doing and how what you are doing is affecting those things.
I wanted to say something, because
Zach,
a
real
lot
quick,
of
can
people.
you say goodbye to this so I can turn off because they shut down after an hour?
Oh yeah, absolutely. So thank y'all. If y'all have any questions, put them in the comment section and we can answer those.
Okay, I wanted to make a statement. If anybody